food for the dead, food for the spirit, and the soul has to be introduced to the newly dead and about to be deified. Salmismo, which is translated to be sour thick porridge made from soaked flour in a tamarind juice. Fried dumplings called kinkira, made from granulated black-eyed peas, accompanied by soaked boiled fried bambara beans called suma. Brewing of beer is part of the process of performing the funeral of the deceased. After the wake, a day has to be announced for the brewing of beer, which we call down. This process begins with malt making, or busika. After the day is selected, millet or guinea corn has to be soaked for a day, 2 days, or 3 days, and when the grains start sprouting, then it is removed and dried. After drying, the malt is ground and ready for yet another processing. Modernity has forced Kunyorba or funerary leaders to allow the introduction of distilled liquor into funerals. Sacrifices. Since the use of blood is a centerpiece of African traditionalism, the newly dead, almost deified, has to be introduced to the use or consumption of blood. This is done on the day after the shortening of the journey. A branch of a fig tree joined at 3 prongs is cut and erected on the left side of the entrance to the manger, which is to the west of the house. From that day on, the erected symbolically becomes the body or the obelisk of the deceased. Instead of suffocating the animals, chickens, or slamming them on the ground for the disease, chickens are slaughtered with blood dripped on this erected wet branch. This literally would be deified that henceforth, or tells they would be deified that henceforth blood is going to be part of his food intake. Why the West? In ancient Kemet, people lived on the east side of the Nile, which was actually called Happy, and the dead were buried on the west side of the Nile, again, which is called Happy. This show will show how funerary leaders perform their duties. So the process of a funeral, or the process of deification, is a funeral. It starts with the wake keeping, shortening of the journey, introducing food to the dead, using a branch of a fig tree as a ladder, reminding the deceased of martial arts, speaking for the first time as a spirit in soothsaying, opening of the mouth, cremation and arming of the dead, and farewell with the god Ampo. Preparations for a funeral. As I stated earlier, it starts with malt making, oil processing, flour grinding, soaking and cleaning of peas and beans, purchasing of animals, construction, or rather consulting entertainers, cracking and soaking of tamarind seeds. I want to read this from the spell 181 of the book of Coming Forth from Darkness to Light, a papyrus of Ani, a royal scribe of the divine offerings. As for him who knows this book, nothing evil shall have power over him. He shall not be turned away at the gates of the west. He shall go in and out, and bread and beer and all good things shall be given to him in the presence of those who are in the Netherlands. This presentation is going to talk especially about the Netherlands. The Netherlands is the land of the gods. Those people who are living are on the land of the living. Now, we also call the land of the dead. If you die, you are expected to go to God or to your ancestors, because they are already spirits and they are deified. So this statement from this book will guide me as I go on with this presentation. First, let's define who funeral leaders are, or Kunyo Orba. Funerary leaders, known as Kunyo Orba, in Gurene or Frafra, are members of an order, or what some people will refer to as a secret society, responsible for preparing the soul of the deceased in transition for his final journey. Funerary leaders perform funerals and deification ceremonies. Funerary leaders derive their powers and devotion from an ancient Kemetic god called Ampo. Ampo was an ancient Kemetic god of mummification, tomb building, embalming, the tomb guardian who protected and defended the corpses in the graves. Ampo was responsible for escorting the dead to the hall of judgment before the god Asa, whom the Greeks later changed to Osiris. It was Ampo who held the scale of the goddess Ma'at, while the god Jehuti recorded the data as to whether the scale is in balance with the feather and the heart of the deceased. As you can see in this picture, this is Ampo, the arrow showing Ampo escorting the deceased to the hall of justice. This is Asa to the right, with his wife Asasi and his sister Nephthys. Again, this is Ampo setting the scales, while the god Jehuti records the findings. There is an animal-looking creature there called a meat. When your heart was not in balance with the feather of Ma'at, your heart was taken out, you are considered a bad person or a sinner, and your heart was removed and put in fire. That's where Europeans call hell. After your heart was put in the fire, it was given to this animal creature called a meat to eat. And that was the end of you. This is the picture of the hall of justice. This is the spelling of Ampo in ancient Kemetic writing called Medonecha. This is A. The eagle stands for A. The wave stands for N. The square stands for P. And the chick stands for U or W. Again, this is the picture of Anpo in his staff, holding also the Ankwa, life. Both his staff, and this is the god of mummification. This is Anpo. Anpo actually means who swore. In Guruni or Frafra, the meaning of the name of God Anpo is who swore. As a god involved in deciding the fate of the deceased entry into the land of the gods or rejection thereof, it makes sense to have a god committed to the truth. On the land of the living, anybody appearing before a judge has to take an oath like I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. That is the meaning, that's the exact meaning of Anpo, who swore. This is the name of this ancient Kemetic god that is responsible for funerals and deifications. In Africa, in Bakabko, African tradition, when a person dies, the first thing is to wrap the mouth with a white calico cloth. This process deprives the deceased from speaking the language he or she once used in communicating with the people of the land of the living. Guruntenga. During the week of the funeral of the deceased, another process known as the opening of the mouth enables the deceased to communicate in the land of the dead of the judgment. This is the fig tree, the tree that is used and erected on the west side of the gate of the entrance to the house, used as an obelisk for introducing blood to the newly deified. This is some of the food prepared for the dead. You can see calabash, you can see flour, you can see dry fowl, everything. All this, and even a mat for the person to travel with so that the person can sleep on. This is one of the delicacies for the dead. It is called bambara beans, or in Gurune it's called suma. It is soaked and then boiled and fried in shea nut oil. These tamarind seeds, the tamarind seeds are normally cracked, soaked, mixed with flour, and then porridge is prepared. When the porridge is prepared, this type of porridge is called samism. That means sour, thick porridge. Dia, or the war dance. Dia, if translated literally, means a mock war dance. It is